man, the Emergency Act wasn't what we should be appalled about, in my opinion. We should be appalled by the reality of inflation. We should be appalled by the inching towards, the Emergency Act was the next logical step in 25 to 50 years worth of political theory where we've gotten here. And it's really us not paying attention to what's going on.
At IBCanada Group, we are your complete and independent source on the infinite banking concept, serving Canadians from coast to coast.
Hello, everyone. I'm Steve MacLellan, the financial engineer, proud owner of Design Your Future Financial Services, and even more of a proud member of the IBCanada Group. And I'm here today with Mike Sidhu, also a proud member of the IBCanada Group. And we're going to do something that the majority of financial advisors will not do. Actually, we're taught not to do it, especially the ones that are working at the firms and institutions. We're taught to be vanilla, to kind of blend in, not to rock the boat, and almost always agree with whatever our client or whoever in front of us is saying, to almost become like a chameleon. But we're going to shake things up a little bit. We're going to, especially with some of the things that have recently happened, now is the time to pay attention. But before we get to that, Mike, tell me something awesome that's going on today with you.
Well, it's I'm actually after this meeting, I'm going to be heading off to a meeting in Delta. Well, I'm going to actually do something that I've never done before, and I'm going to teach a group of concerned men and women about monetary history. I'm going to be doing a class on political, economic, and monetary theory. And I'm actually really excited about it. I'm going to just be able to just add a tremendous amount of value. So yeah, looking forward to it for sure.
That's great. And I know most people would probably roll their eyes and want to go to sleep when they hear that, but I know you throw it, you make it entertaining and realize what actually is going on.
Well, I'm learning a dance routine and doing an interpretive dance routine with that, Steve. So I'm going to make it very enjoyable. It's going to turn in more into from a theoretical history lesson to a more of a comedy act. So I'm sure with my dancing because I've got two left feet, so it's going to be fun. Okay,
well, let's talk a little bit about what is going on now. I don't know about you, but personally myself, I found the kickoff of this year, the year that usually I have my big goals and I'm a go-getter, it was blah. I had a really hard time getting out of my own way. And a lot of business owners and a lot of people I was talking to suffered the same thing. And it wasn't until just recently, I was lucky enough to drive in a carpool. Yes, we're driving in carpools again here on the East Coast to my daughter's hockey game, where I talked to a real life person. And I was able to pinpoint kind of the frustration I had, the anger that was actually paralyzing me. And it came down to the complete incompetence of our leaders out there today. And I think the one that really accelerated was the use of the Emergency Act here recently in our own country. Mike, in your professional opinion, why aren't more Canadians appalled by the use of this Emergency Act here we all know when a time to use the Emergency Act is, and that's probably when your country is being attacked by Russia.
By anybody, yeah.
Yeah, not so much when our prime minister decided to use it. But listen, you and I are appalled by it, but why aren't more Canadians? Why isn't this something that we're seeing more of?
Well, I think that, and I'm gonna keep, although Justin Trudeau, the Right Honorable Justin Trudeau is currently our Prime Minister. I've always considered myself to be more of a person that stands on principle rather than party. And so therefore, I'm not going to call Mr. Trudeau out specifically, but I'm just going to talk about the malaise that I think that you and a lot of the Canadian public is feeling, is this malaise or this apathy or this unawareness of what the law says I'm not a constitutional lawyer by any means. I'm not a history major by any means, but I'm self-taught in both constitutional history and law and economics and political theory and all that sort of stuff. And I think there's just people are busy. When we look at the general apathy or malaise in terms of the election cycle, how many Canadians don't vote? How many Canadians don't pay attention? Sadly, local politics is even worse. Like federal politics, we have a certain amount of people vote there. Less people vote provincially, and even less people vote municipally. And in reality, I'm hoping that Canadians really wake up and vote municipally, they vote provincially, and they vote federally. Because the election was so tight. The 2020 election, Mr. Trudeau won by, he got 28.5% of the vote is what I can remember. But isn't it interesting how only about 58% of the people voted who are eligible to vote, and out of that, he got them the majority of the ridings. He didn't get the majority of the votes, but anyway, I think it's apathy. Part of that, and I'm sure you as a father, we seem to be getting busier as we age. I mean, most people think, oh man, time is speeding up. Time is going so fast now, and it just was like boom. Like I've got 3 kids, and my oldest is going to be turning 23 this year. My youngest is turning 18 in a couple months. And wow, that just went whew, in the blink of an eye. My kids are that old now. And I think that the more things that we have going on, like it's a busy world. We get inundated with information. We get inundated with things and stuff and life and stress and all those sorts of things. And we get distracted quite often. It was, can't remember the name of the gentleman who said this, but if you give them bread and circuses, they'll never revolt. Back in the Roman era, right? We should
let them eat cake, right?
Yeah, let them eat cake. Let them drive Teslas. But I think, man, the Emergency Act wasn't what we should be appalled about, in my opinion. We should be appalled by the reality of inflation. We should be appalled by the inching towards, the Emergency Act was the next logical step in 25 to 50 years worth of political theory where we've gotten here. And it's really us not paying attention to what's going on. Liberties being kind of burned off letter by letter in the act and letter, but although nothing has really changed in the Constitution Act of 1982, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the Bill of Rights, the 1960 Bill of Rights, the 1867 Constitution Act, the BNA Act, and all the other documents that collectively determine the Constitution of England, that the principles of this country was founded on, including 1215's Magna Carta. We are always in this pull, this tension between the rights of the individual and the collective rights inherent to the state. And who decides what is best? Who decides what we should be doing? And it's because of that lack of knowledge that we have this idea. I think wasn't it Goebbels in World War II said people don't believe what is true; they believe what they hear most often. And isn't that the case today?
Listen, yeah, I agree with you. And maybe the Emergency Act isn't the biggest or worst thing that's been done, but to me it shows, again, the clear incompetence, the mistakes after mistakes being made, the lack of leadership, and the fact that no one has control. If we ever thought we had control, man, it can be taken away very quickly. And it was, especially for those that were in the protests. And that's a whole other discussion. Was the protest right or not? That's a whole other discussion. But let's just focus on what the leaders of our country are doing. And I guess what that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for me, is that, okay, this is enough. I've got to finally voice my opinion and get out there and start helping those that want the help. I'm very value based, and I haven't watched the news. I don't watch the news. I lived in the States for a while, and I think anybody watching this, you realize this news in the States is it's not news. It's a show. You got your Fox, you got your CNN. You'd like to think the same thing is in Canada, but unfortunately, it's turning into a show. It's entertainment.
The Emergencies Act, Steve, is not the problem, it's a symptom of the problem.
Exactly.
But we still have to address that the symptom happened. And I think what that's really done is it's shaken the core foundation of many, many Canadians' faith in the independence of the banking system and government. And since when should those two entities be intertwined? And quite honestly, they've been intertwined since the advent of 1935, 1936 of the Bank of Canada, when that started. So
totally. I listen, you're preaching to the choir here, but hopefully people are waking up to this as well. In Canada, we got the two main media outlets, CBC and CBC Light, as I like to call them. And when I turned on the news, when I did find out that the Emergency Act was pulled, I was like, man, this is crazy. I got to turn on the news. There's very little to say about it, which made me think, okay, what's going on? And if you listen, I don't want to go too far down a dark hole, rabbit hole, but the fact is the CBC, our main news, is heavily compensated by our current leader.
Well, they've just pulled tabled new legislation to pull all commercial advertising out of the CBC and make it a 100% federally backed institution. And I think that CBC, the letter CBC, should be replaced by TASS, which in the Soviet Union was the official government news center. So it's one of the basic tenets of a free democracy is the independence of the press. And we're losing that. We're losing it with, in my opinion, CBC being fully funded, but all major stations getting that $600 million buyout funding during COVID. Now somebody, I haven't confirmed this, but somebody's told me that is actually an annual thing. So I don't have any confirmation of that. But.
Right. And it's funny, you beat me to the punch with the punch at the Russians or Soviet Union, because if this was, it's pure propaganda anywhere else, right? And I used to pride myself when I did live in the States. A lot of people would ask me what's the big difference between America and the States. And I would joke, the Canadians usually tried on a pair of hockey skates and own a Tragically Hip album. But I also said we're more open-minded. It's not so left and right, but that is disappearing. And I'm very sad to hear that.
A polarized society is easy to whip up into, whatever is the flavor of the day in terms of what serves the animal of the beast of politics, right?
Leads me to my next question, Mike. Why should Canadians be so alarmed by the use of the Emergency Act?
Steve, that's a heavy question. I'm going to try and give you a Cliff Notes version of my answer, which is basically to say it's a giant overstep. We have, and I referred to some of those documents already, such as the Charter of the Constitution, where we should have faith in our markets, independent markets. We should have freedom of the press. We should have a lot of these, freedoms that are granted within a working democracy. And when you have a subjective Even though maybe whether the truck, and this is not about the trucker convoy and whether somebody supports or doesn't support the truckers convoy, I think it's an affront to economic freedom that people are having their bank accounts frozen or seized. I do pay attention to news, and I do pay attention to news internationally, and we are the talk of international news about how appalling the seizure of bank accounts were for people right across this country, primarily Ontario, though, right across this country, to be donating to whatever they want to donate to. And I think that we should have the freedom to support the things that we have our values to. To have those subjectively restricted is it's an affront to the charter.
Hey, it really shocked me to the core that this is a knee-jerk reaction, total overreaction. And if this is something that they can do just like that over a bunch of people protesting, what's going to happen when times actually get really tough? We've been talking about inflation, right?
It was not only sweeping inflation, legislation, but it was not under the Emergencies Act. Many bills can be introduced that are introduced without having rounds of debate in the lower house before going to the upper house, the Senate, to have those vetted and then signed off by the Governor General. But the update to the Terrorist and Financing Act is already in place. The current government, as supported by other minority parties, are considering making that permanent, where the banks, the case populaires, credit unions, and certain investments held by insurance companies, anything in the public market, those are all subject to the order.
Yeah, to me, it's absolutely crazy. So you had everyday Canadians, not terrorists, not drug smugglers, but everyday Canadians that were just questioning the government and not doing it. I don't want to go too far. That had their banks accounts locked, seized, no access to their own money. So my question to you now is, how can the Canadians that are concerned, because they should be very concerned about this and the way our leadership is going, the economy is going, we have our ears to the ground. There's what should Canadians be doing right now to make sure that they can protect and control their own money?
So I'm gonna give you two angles on this. One is the political angle. You need to call your MP. You need to call your local MP in your riding, and you need to voice your concerns, because MPs are only a reflection of the prevailing trends and opinions of their constituents. And you need to let them know that it's unacceptable to do that. I've been in many talks with my my MP about this and many other issues that I think, as I mentioned, this is just a symptom of the problem, and every symptom that comes up, I'm addressing in order to get his ear a little bit. But the monetary thing is to get your money out of sitting in a bank account, right? Whether you believe that your money is at risk or not from being potentially caught up in this Terrorist or Financing Act, and let's be honest, I think we all can agree that there are certain things that should be legitimately labeled as terrorist financing. I think that's a truism, but there are things subjectively that if 60% of the population or even 70% of the population don't agree that they're a terrorist financing organization, those that have donated through GoFundMe or what have you, to whatever event is going on, whether that's cancer treatment or truckers or whatever is subjective based on what's politically profitable at the time, you need to consider alternatives in holding your capital. In my opinion, and this is backed up by the Canadian Life and Health Insurance Association, who didn't come out with a formal statement, although they were prepared to, had the vote gone through the Senate to extend the Emergencies Act, which we won't get into how that happened. But anyway, they came out and said life and health insurance products are not part of this Emergency Act or this call. And one of the ways that Canadians can protect their capital is to store their capital inside such a policy, whether that's a policy that has a return of premium, such as a limited pay critical illness policy. My preferred asset class, however, is a properly designed, dividend paying, participating whole life insurance contract, which is also enjoys the benefits and preferred status of being a tax exempt asset class within the Act. And within the Act, it's grandfathered because life insurance has been around since 1847. 70 years later, the Temporary War Measures and Income Tax Act came into force. So it enjoys a very unique status as being slightly outside the norm in terms of what is and what is not seizable. Now, again, if you have somebody who's a legitimate terrorist or would be considered part of an organization that's terrorist, these guys aren't the guys that are doing life insurance. They can't get life insurance. They're not. The beautiful thing about life insurance is that it's selective, right? My insurance contract is approved based on my character, my health status, my ability to pay, but most importantly, the need for insurance. If I do not have a need to have life insurance on me, I'm going to be opted out if I'm not healthy based on lifestyle. Right? If I'm running around like, why is this guy going to, some foreign country or whatever all the time, and that's kind of suspicious. And oh, look, he has no T4, and he's claiming he makes $400,000 a year in cash. That person would probably be opted out and not selected for a life insurance contract because of the questionable nature of income or the questionable nature of his personal safety. So, what I love about life insurance is that you're going to be put in a very unique group of people that can definitely prove those things that I mentioned, the reasonability of having an insurance contract, that they have debts or family that they need to take care of. But within those contracts, we can specifically design them, or lest I say engineer them, since I am talking to the financial engineer. We can engineer them in a very specific way that can duplicate or act as a storage of almost a warehouse to hold our wealth and grow, protect, and save our capital over time.
That's right. And it's creditor protected and government protected. They can't get their hands on it. And there's just to recap what you said, there's several different types of insurance that you can invest in. There's the living benefits, such as the CI, critical illness with return on premiums and other that. You got your current life insurance, but you also have insurance that you can be using while you're living and healthy, such as your properly structured dividend paying whole life policy that you mentioned.
It's not the only asset, but in my opinion, it's the preferred asset.
Yeah, we share that same opinion, and really now is the time to pay attention. I think we're just starting to see the beginning of what's coming down the road because of look, I don't think they did this on purpose, but just the mistakes and the massive inflation that's coming. It's already here, and it's only going to go up. Now is the time to start paying attention and to control, grow, and keep your money instead of giving away to the government, taxes, fees, or even loss.
And to be honest, Steve, this isn't a Trudeau problem. It's not a conservative problem. It's not an NDP problem. The issue of government overreach and the struggle for individual liberty is a non-partisan issue. Politicians, let's be honest, politicians will do what's politically profitable. My hope and prayer is that we have some statesmen and stateswomen that are willing to represent their communities instead of career politicians who are willing to drag this along. Again, that's another story, but you know, yeah, it's a nonpartisan issue. Trudeau just happens to be in the driver's seat at this time, but you know, I am concerned over the general elitism and narcissism in the House.
Well said. So to recap, now's the time to pay attention, to step up. You know, the country needs you. I love this line. Never understood it as a kid, but I understand it now. It's not what the country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Get in touch with your MP and start looking at ways to actually grow, control, and protect your money. The infinite banking concept, it's an ideal time to dive into that, to look at it. And you can find more information on our website, the IBCanadagroup.com.ca works. And you'll see a ton of valuable information on there. And you'll also see ways to reach out to other independent advisors that are willing to help you. Any final words before we go, Mike?
You know, I totally agree with you. It's time to pay attention. Now is the time to pay attention. And you know, whether you dive deep into the political, economic, and monetary history of this, or whether you're just like, I don't understand what's going on, or whether you're like, what do you mean the Emergency Act happened? I think you hit the nail on the head when you said now is the time to pay attention, because you know, our individual freedoms and liberties are slipping. They're always in a constant state of slipping away. And I'm not going to say that this next election is going to be the one that breaks the camel's back, because I could have said that about every single election since 1867. It's important to be at least paying attention. It's important to know what your personal rights are and what your options are and opportunities are to move forward, for sure. So I totally, everything you said, on board with.
Right. Democracy is a very delicate thing. Surround yourself with those that want to help you succeed. And hopefully that makes us all stronger. I appreciate working with you, Mike, and all the best. Enjoy your course today, but keep up the good work and keep spreading the good word.
Thanks for your time, Steve. Really appreciate it.
All the best. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
IBCanada Group, your independent authority for information on the infinite banking concept.